because they did that. And I kept wondering, you know, that with all the hostility that the PBP had for their rice farmers, according to Nagamutu, they produced over 650,000 tons of rice in 2014, the highest level ever in our history, last year. The highest level ever in our history. So what would have happened if we liked them? We hated them so much that they produced the highest level of rice in our history. If we had loved these rice farmers, maybe we'd be producing 10 million tons of rice. But you can see the hollowness in his speech. It sounds good. The song bites are good. But he talks about the Dawa pump. We're fixing one pump, which was in train already. And he had to acknowledge that these pumps, several pumps were bought under the PPP that they are now installing. And he ignores totally the statement by the president that this is a private industry, the falsehood that they perpetrated on the country and the rice farmers when the Minister of Finance announced in the first budget of the coalition government that there was $23 billion of subsidy for the rice industry, and they received zero. He doesn't talk about the $2.3 billion that we left in GRDB, where they've used nearly $500 million to single source fertilizer to a group of people, and you've seen this, that are known to many AFC members, single source to them. Doesn't talk about the 16% VAT that they surreptitiously sneaked in back on heavy equipment in the last budget that will harm not just the rice industry, but if you buy a combine now, it's about $4 million more you have to pay because of the 16% VAT that they've reintroduced on heavy equipment, on tractor, etc. But it will also have a devastating impact on mining and many other sectors. Doesn't talk anything about the policies. He doesn't talk about what is happening in the Mexican market. You remember in his usual flair for PR, he went and he was a savior of the rice industry and went to Mexico and got a big contract, he said, and that next year, that is, this year, the contract would materialize. Where is that contract after spending our money on that trip? Nothing of this sort. So this is Nagamutu. Secondly, he said the Petro-Caribbean funds were somehow mismanaged. And let me tell you, when Nagamutu talks numbers, he does one thing that most people fail to do with me. He confuses me. So because he has no respect for numbers. So he said we spent $100 million from Petro-Caribbean in the housing sector. It was $10 million. We made it clear that the Petro-Caribbean account was used primarily to finance the trade in rice. You would recall the first week they said that money was missing after the coalition government came into office. Where is the audit of the Petro-Caribbean funds? I've called for an international audit of the Petro-Caribbean funds. Where is this audit if the resources are missing? It's true we spent $140 million or so for GPL to put in new power plants at Kingston, etc., from the oil proceeds, and that formed part of our debt to Venezuela. $10 million for the housing sector, and $16 million for the Hope Canal. These were the three projects. Close to $600 million was spent to finance the rice trade, and that meant no debt to the country, because Although we had borrowed against the the supply of oil, we then retired the debt. And when you saw Jordan announce in this budget that the stock of debt had reduced from about 50% of GDP to about 48% of GDP, he was just signing off on the instruments retiring those debts. That is what, the Petro-Caribbean debts. So he, clueless again. But he was a coward because he used the occasion to grandstand and to talk, and because they were slammed, they were battered in the debate on that motion about the lack of concern for the industry. And so he sought that mechanism. So my concern about Parliament is growing, about how it's being treated. Look at the long gap again. We're not sure when Parliament will be held. We have tons of things to discuss in the Parliament, but the government treats Parliament conveniently. When ministers have to travel, the highest forum, in legislative forum in the country, cannot meet. It has to await ministers traveling. I'm going to end there. And because there's so many diverse questions that you've called me on, and I promised to address here today. So I want to give time for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No questions, and I'm not either.
Yeah, sure.
You said you believe this time that we put behind us, and equally some of your supporters were angry and then socially defend that frustration.
Yeah.
What do you see if your supporters put this behind us?
I just said it on national television. It's time we put this behind us.
Yeah, two questions.
But we could have done better. Really, it pains me to see this, because it's our country, regardless of who, as I said in Parliament, who is in power now. It's the image of our country that matters. And when things that are so simple, I think it was one newspaper that said, it's such a simple thing to do, just to put reserve for 200 seats. You know, just reserve on that, and then have the ushers say, ministers, members of parliament, others will go here. That's all you need to do. You know, basic things. And have ushers who, you know, will direct those people to those seats. And then, I don't want to comment on the gala dinner, but really, we can do better as a country. We organize a small state dinner, a regular thing. And there's some, when there's state organized functions, they have to meet some standards. Anyhow, let me don't get into that one. Let me don't get into that one, because I don't want to be today to focus on those things. We need to just move on. Yes. On the same matter? No, well then, let me finish. He has a supplement. No, after the experience, some of our MPs called, and I said, we may be sucker for punishment if we go to the second one to do that, you know, because there's no assurance that it would be any different. We didn't receive a call to say, you know, well, this one will be any different. So some people said, don't be a sucker for punishment.
You know, you spoke about women, so I just wanted to ask, what do you think the walkout did for the people?
As I said before, the night was a special night, and I said it in my interview. It was a special night. It's 50th independence of our anniversary. You know, people were happy. I spoke with lots of people, and they were there, and you know, the mood was good. Everything was was good among the people, perfect. It's just the disorganization. And then, and that's why I wanted people to know that it had nothing to do with our respect for our country or our flag or anything else. It's just the humiliation that took place. It has absolutely nothing to do with that.
Some critics might say that in interest of country, it would have been a great gesture and a showing of,
Yeah.
how do you say, the bigness on your part if you had stood up throughout with your MPs throughout.
Yeah.
Show that it's not so much the seating, it would show the incompetence of the people on the team to be responsible, but it
Yeah.
would show that you can rise above seating and stand for your country instead of
Yeah.
walking out. How would you respond to that?
I don't think anyone can question the patriotism of PVP people. I've been president of this country for over 12 years. And so a lot of the decisions on the safety of our borders, the integrity of our borders, lots of the decisions concerning national security and well-being were in my hands. And so I respect all the symbols of nationhood. And this country is special to all of us. But what sort of leader would I have been if I did not show that basically that this is unacceptable? The humiliation, you weren't there, and you could not see the faces of the members of parliament. I looked over, and maybe many of them don't want to admit it, but I looked over. And it's not a very good thing when you see people taking pictures. Just this mass of people, 90% of them I've never, maybe I haven't seen. So they're not like prominent Guyanese, including a lot of people told me they made donations and they never got an invitation. They made donations to the construction, the Durban Park thing. These are like patriots and stuff, and they never got an invitation. And then the crowd, like some people in the crowd taking pictures and stuff, the humiliation. That was the decision at that moment. And I spoke I did not say, all right, let's go. They wanted to leave a bit early, and I said,